into another podcast of Plus One, a rock and roll podcast. I'm Jack Trash.
And I'm Chris McLernon.
This week on the show, we have got a guest that, well, let's do it. No matter what time you're seeing this, we are airing this on March 29th.
Yes. Yep.
Which is the day that this artist has a new record coming out.
Yeah, something out of the archives, yes.
Yes, which is kind of funny because when I suggested that we do this interview and have it premiere on the 29th, he was like, why?
Yeah,
like, because you got a record coming out that day?
Some people, Jack, you just can't help, you know?
We do what we can.
Exactly.
All right, so I don't think this has ever been done before.
We're going to find out.
I know. All right. So without any further ado, let's get to our conversation with Chris McLernon from Cold Sweat.
Yes, here I am. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Arnold is numero uno.
He is. Still is.
That's right. All right. So let's do it this way. Cold Sweat has not had a record out in a long time.
30 years, at least. More like 30. It'll be 34, I think, this May.
Okay.
I think that's when Breakout came out.
All right. So why now?
Oddly enough, I think, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot. We've had, and so have a lot of other bands, we've had a 30-year span of the ability to gather new fans and not be seen as part of a fashion movement. You know, like grunge can't get us 30 years out.
Right.
So there's people who like that style of music and have been able to find it. And we're like, you know what? Let's give them what they want. So we had some songs in the vault and that people have always asked about. So we threw those out there. And then we had live stuff from the Monsters of Rock cruise a couple of years ago. And we put about half the live set on there because we didn't want to overlap. And then there's the real gem of it is a bootleg from the stage in 1990 in Mannheim.
Really?
Yeah, it's a cassette recording. A friend of mine named Julie Kennedy was working for Rockbeat, and she came with us to cover the festival. And she had her handheld cassette, you know, because that's how you did interviews then.
Right.
And she had a handheld cassette, and she had the smartness to hit that button when we were playing. So you get to hear us live, and since you're on the stage, you hear the crowd, you know, coming at us as opposed to the other way around, and it's cool.
That's cool. So where is this vault?
What do you mean? What do you mean? It makes it sound like everyone's got a vault,
right? So you said these songs have been sitting in a vault here for 30 years.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. Yeah. They were on a DAT tape. Now DAT is digital audio tape, and it's almost like it's not impossible to find players, but it's kind of like finding 8-track players. You know, they're really difficult to find.
For those who don't know about DATs were supposed to be the next big thing.
Yep. And they're great. I mean,
they were basically Betamax.
Yeah, they were. But the thing is, it was really great, and it kept all the info on there digitally. Thankfully, there's no dropouts. And I found a guy named Jeff Leonard in town who had one, and we had to kind of break it to make it work. It would not work. And then we're thinking, oh God, now the tape's going to break, and we're hosed. And as it turns out, we got all 4 songs off, and perfect transfer, and then just kind of close it up and like, here, you can have it back now. And then he called me, I think about a week ago. I was like, hey man, how do you get this thing to work? I was like, part incantation, So that was where that came from. Those 4, and then the Monsters of Rock was we recorded while we were on the boat last time we did the cruise, and so that's just like board tape, and I edited it some because there's they're just talking and stuff, and people like Ant's a left-handed drummer ish, so he'll play his ride and his snare, his ride and his hi-hat on his left hand.
Okay.
So the microphone typically for a ride is on the other side. So I had to kind of compensate for that. There was Ant trying to sing. They didn't know his part, so he'd have to swing his boom mic over, and they wouldn't get there in time. So, little things like that you fix.
Gotcha.
So it's not completely live, boo-hoo, but,
right.
It's pretty much how we sound. I love it. Sounds great.
It's not Kiss Alive 2.
No, it's not. Or one for that matter.
Right.
Where Paul Stanley is singing harmony with himself on Shutter.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah. Very good. So,
But
okay, so it's called Unburied Alive.
yeah.
I know there was some talk about that name, but it's all right. It's good. It's cool.
Right. Yeah. There was not divided camps. It was like you either loved it or you didn't.
Right.
And the way I looked at it was the Ron Keel, who runs RK Media, has been so generous and just left me alone to do what I want to do. And I figured, well, this is one that they really like. I didn't understand. I just like, okay. So it was like, I hate it. But it was just kind of like, okay. But they loved it. I was like, you know what? You love it. Cool. You know, that's, you'll work harder for it. I great. No problem. I wasn't going to be like, no, it has to be this. It has to be. No, not at all. Just go. You love it. Fine. Great.
So where did the, how did this ball get rolling?
Oddly enough, through the fifth, we were looking through songs that obviously Roy Cathy sang on,
right?
That had already been written. Because when you go to compile stuff for a record, you dig in everything. And I sent those over to Ron, and Ron was like, "Wait a minute, this is Cold Sweat." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You got any more?" I was like, "Well, I think I'd send him two." I said, "Yeah, there's 4." He goes, "Cool. Why don't we do a Cold Sweat record instead?" I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay. What do you want to put on it?" Because I told him I did have that Mannheim stuff. I was like, "Okay, that's a cool little Easter egg."
Right.
And I could put some of the live sound. I didn't want to be a full live set. I was like, let's get the real highlights and go.
Right.
And he was like, "Cool, let's do it." So I did a couple test mixes and sent over. He's like, "Done. Let's go."
Wow.
Easy. Yeah.
Well, and so all the members of this Cold Sweat are all the original members. Well,
yes. Yep.
Yeah. We don't need to go singer wise, but
right.
But the ones that recorded on Breakout.
Oh yeah. Yep. All the original staff.
So what were their reactions when I'm assuming it was you made those phone calls saying, Ron Keel wants to put out a Cold Sweat record. What do you think?
Yeah. Everyone was enthusiastic because we were fans of the material. We thought it was good. Right. And we'd done it at Sound City with a guy named Bruce Barris, who's no longer with us, but Bruce was our engineer on Breakout. So it sounds consistent. And it was Sound City. So we were used to the room. We were used to the board, the legendary board now that Dave Grohl owns.
Right.
And it's a matter of, do we have to twist anyone's arm? And nope. Everyone was like, cool, let's go. Do it. I like it.
That's cool. That's
one of those rare unanimous decisions by the band. Well, let's all go. Okay. Woo, mark this date.
Right. Yeah. How many times has that actually happened in your career?
Yeah. I'll count one.
One.
Just to be safe. Maybe 2 by accident.
Right. Nice. We can't even decide on which Happy Meal we're going to get.
You got it. Exactly. Someone's always got some sort of, let's say in that case, someone's, it's too salty or whatever. Okay. All right. But everyone agreed on this.
Okay. So for everybody out there who wants to get a version of Unburied Alive,
yes.
Is it going to, what kind of physical format is it going to be in?
It's going to be in, it's in CD.
Right.
We've talked, as everyone does, talks about vinyl.
Right.
But the lead time is so inordinately long for vinyl. Right. Because I don't want someone to be hyped and get their vinyl and have to wait 4 months for it. And by that point, like, whatever.
Right.
Now, what we have talked about is doing new material and then doing maybe a 45.
Oh.
Yeah, right. Kind of old school.
Right.
And a lot more, like we could, let's say, write it and finish it. And I'm, for the sake of this discussion, we could get it done today and I hand it in. And then, a couple months and we, talk about it after a month and a half where it's okay. That lead time makes sense.
Right.
It's not crazy long, like, oh, wow. Like we're thinking about Christmas, Right. It's not that far ahead in the future.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've always wondered that on what is the actual time from when you finish to when you say, okay, this is it, to when when the consumer like me says, okay, this is it.
Right. It used to be about 3 months because that was print deadlines or lead lines. Because let's say you want to be in Hit Parader or Metal Edge or whatever, you want to be you want that to coincide with the release, and that lead time was 3 months. So you knew you had to start there.
Right.
And some bands push it, like I know Saigon Kick push it with Water, and Cold Sweat push it with Breakout. Wendy had gone into MC and said, "Look, I can get them on the road now. So release the thing," and she did. So we kind of skipped ahead, meaning Cold Sweat. We kind of not skipped ahead. We were kind of lagging behind a little bit in the publicity department, but we figured it out. Right. It worked. And now 30 years later, we have plenty of time. So
right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's for like the newer age of this, I know that everybody's talking about this Bon Jovi docuseries that's coming out at the end of April.
Yeah.
And then you find out that, there's a new record coming out first week of June.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Right, exactly. Yeah, these are not accidents.
No, not at all. Okay, for the people who want to see Cold Sweat,
we will be hopefully will be coinciding with the M3 festival. So March 29th is coming out, so it gives us a good month, which is May 3rd for the. We're playing actually the 5th. It's okay. I think I wanted to play May 4th just for the Star Wars thing, but anyway.
Well, you can go to Mile. That's okay too.
There you go. I didn't think about that. So it will coincide with that. So they can get it everywhere, Amazon's, and as I call it, the major label now, which is iTunes.
Right.
But yeah, Amazon, and there will be hard copies like in Target and that's Walmart and that sort of stuff. So
really?
There will be, but there's going to be it's going to be CDs right now.
Right.
Otherwise, and as I say, streaming on all digital platforms.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So I don't think, since you're part of this podcast too.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions you'd like to ask yourself?
Why'd you wait 30 years?
Why'd you wait 30 years?
I think that answer is we weren't sure if everyone would buy into the fact that we were still the original unit and that we still had some pop, and that what we were going to hand out was not a half-ass demo or something that looked like it was contrived and fixed and ended like sewn together. Yeah. These are all done. We were using this demo, the 4-song demo, to shop the band after we'd been dropped by MCA.
Gotcha.
So Wendy was behind us, and we had, like I said, Bruce, and it was at Sound City, so everyone knew it was pro. But man, you were radioactive. Nobody wanted to touch you if you were even from that era. And that's the fun part, is now going. And I think it goes for a lot of bands. It doesn't just go for the ones from our era. It just you have this span of time where you're allowed to outgrow the fashion of the time. Like it's not, that doesn't matter. It's not a point of perception. Right. They're from this era and they got knocked out. Like in the 70s, I guess it would be like if you decide to find the punks and all the what do you call it? The prog bands. And see, because prog bands got killed by punk. Right. But now people find, like, certainly my kids, they just find it, it's just in that year. They don't care. Right. They don't know.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I watched this was a documentary on the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, I was a kid, I always thought that the Sex Pistols were out to kill Kiss.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't. Their more main focus was the Emerson, Lake and Palmers and Yes and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was, they showed, I mean, you can, obviously in a documentary you can show anything you want. So right. They said, we hate these bands that are just over the top and everything. And they showed Rick Wakeman in a cape.
Oh yeah. Yep. And Rick Wakeman, who can play his ass off, right. It's crazy, but yeah. And all those bands just got roast like, but if you flip forward a couple of years, now you have the hair bands who could all play and all looked good. They all looked like David Lee Roth and could move like a fucking jock, a sports star. What was the opposite? Well, guys who didn't give a shit how they looked, more clothes they could afford, as opposed to the very expensive outfits from all the seamstresses.
Right.
So you now had kids playing in jeans and t-shirts and boots and whatever they could afford, and the guitars were whatever they could afford because no one could. It had reached its ultimate by meaning the quote glam / hair metal / whatever you want to call that.
Right.
It had reached its zenith. It could not go any. was like I think you and I were talking about 84 and 5150. Van Halen could go nowhere else with David Lee Roth.
No.
It was just, it had to become 5150 with Sammy Hagar. It just did.
Yeah.
You don't see it at the time, but in the span of the career, it makes total sense.
Sure. Exactly. And I might have told you this before, but I think it was, I want to say it was 84 or 8. Yeah, it had to be 84 or 85. I went to go see Accept.
Yeah.
At a little place in Costa Mesa called the Concert Factory. I believe that was the name, but I can't remember. It's the only time I was ever there. And I'm standing in line, and it was cold. So I had a flannel shirt on.
Yeah.
And these girls that were behind us, the two girls that went to an Accept show.
Yeah. They lose a bet or something?
Yeah. They're looking at me, and they're saying, and the quote was, flannel, how metal.
Oh, ow.
And I'm like, I'm 10 years ahead of my time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Wow. Ouch.
Yeah. So.
But perfect example,
Yeah.
It was the fashion. The fashion, I think, has more to do with the music industry than anything else.
Yeah.
Because you could have and we saw it certainly coming out of that era. You had a lot of really good bands like The Scream, let's say.
Yes.
They were on the tail end of it.
Right.
And Brother Kane to me was like that.
Yeah.
They're kind of almost there. Saigon Kick was like that. They didn't know what the fuck to do with us.
Right. Yeah.
But Cold Sweat was definitely not it. And that was a drag. Because we were a good band, and we fought hard to be a good band, and we practiced and we wrote, and we wanted to be good at what we did. That did not matter.
Yeah. Well, so since I was thinking about this today, the Sunset Strip, all the bands that were on the Sunset Strip, it was kind of like a high school.
Yeah.
Right. And now you go to your 30-year high school reunion, and you see what the guys in those bands did.
Oh yeah.
And there's some guys that are still doing it. They're still doing it at a very high level and all of that. Then there are other guys who are still doing it and just still doing it at the Concert Factory.
Oh yeah.
And then there's people who have gone off in total different directions. So, so of what what have the guys in Cold Sweat been up to for the last 30 years?
I do know, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Luckily. Yeah. By the way, I think you bring up an interesting point of that span of time of high school, because it's 4 years.
Yeah.
And we kind of look at that period, it was like, I got there in 85, it was about 89, 90, it was starting to, here we go, we're gone.
Right.
And everyone graduated at the same time.
Yeah.
And then you were wondering, now what do I do after this?
Yeah.
But for Cold Sweat, Roy Cathy was in a bunch of bands. He and Eric Cammons were in a band at one point called Pain Society, which is really cool, really heavy. And I think they both just kind of went, we feel like, again, we've missed our spot. So I think Roy moved to Atlanta. Eric became a video editor, and a good one. Yeah. Mark Ferrari was one of the first to start licensing music to TV and film, and he's literally going around with cassettes, because he's organized. He had, basically like a cassette, whatever holder. This is before CDs, and he'd say, they'd say, I need a song like AC/DC, but they knew AC/DC was too expensive, so they go to Mark, and that's what Mark did, and he did incredibly well at it. I think Ant was one of those guys that he was in Strutter for a while, which was a Kiss, one of the bigger Kiss tribute bands. And to the point, I think they were on Jerry Springer or Maury Povich or something. So they got about as big as you can get.
Right.
And he did that. And then I think he also just said, you know what? And we all did this at one point. I just give up. And not give up, but I've had enough.
Yeah.
Because I still play music. And Ant went back and played, just played to play. I think he moved to Ohio, and he just played. I saw everyone, kind of on the road at some point when I was in Saigon Kick. Right. And then for me, I came back. We'd done Saigon Kick. Literally, it was done, and I decided to take up the family business offer and come up to Charleston from South Florida and run the family business. So that was my left turn.
Right.
And then from there, everyone kind of just did their own thing. And all of a sudden, I think it was one of those instances where Larry Moran who does the Monsters of Rock cruises, called us up and said, "Hey, I know you guys are still alive,
right?
Right, and you all kind of still play. Do you want to do a cruise?" And we're like, sure. So we did, and it worked.
Yeah,
it was great. Everyone got along. Everyone always kind of got along. That was the thing about Cold Sweat. There's no breakup. There's no I hate you. No, I hate you. It kind of just dissolved, and everyone kind of just faded away into the water. So, which was good, because I've certainly been in other ones where it's been a little more acrimonious. Just saying. And so he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Sure." And everyone else is, I think, Mark might take a little bit of convincing, just because I think Mark was in the middle of a fairly large deal. So I was like, dude, if it doesn't work, there'll be another one. And we figured it out, and there he was, and as soon as we played, it was like, yeah, duh, this was easy.
Yeah.
The hard part was getting in the room. The easy part is being in the room.
You're right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, as the first time we met was on a Zoom call. It's the only time we've ever met is on Zoom calls.
That's right. That's right.
I was doing. We were talking about the Canal record, which is another side project that you have going on.
Right.
And, when I got sent over the information, the first thing my eye went to was, he's the bass player in Cold Sweat.
Yeah.
Holy shit! I love that band.
Awesome. Yeah, we don't, which is cool. And Saigon has this too. We don't have mediocre fans. They're all in. Right. Like Cold Sweat, like the folks who are. Well, hey. Sorry. Sorry. That was my what do you call it? Witness protection light going off.
Yeah.
So what was I saying? Something about
fans are all in.
Oh yeah. So Cold Sweat, we just run into people and goes, "Oh man, I have this. I saw you guys open for deal here." They're still really, really passionate, and it was cool because you don't know.
Yeah.
You've been living your own life and doing your own thing, and you think, well, we're just playing rock and roll, aren't we? Well, apparently not.
No.
Well, you reach some people. So that's a really cool part. We had one. I think the first time I did a cruise was Saigon, and some dude was to my left, a couple tables over, and I look over, and when you've been pegged, right? Plus, you got a bunch of guys. You got me and Beeler and somebody else. It's pretty obvious who we are. We're all just hanging out together. Gee, I wonder why these guys are here. Duh, we're all trapped on a boat for a week. Right. And so this guy, I look over, right, and kind of give him a look at, go back to my lunch. I'm eating, hanging around. I turn over again. I look, and he's got the Cold Sweat CD booklet, like the original poster. Nice. He kind of goes like this, like, hey, you want to sign? He kind of gives me like a timid look. I was like, I got right up and went over and sat down and said, "Hey man, how you doing?" Because that's what I am. And he's like, "Oh, I've been so excited that you're here." And da-da-da-da. Can I ask you a question? I said, "You can ask me anything. Go ahead. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna bullshit. If I think it's too far, I'll say so. But yeah, ask anything you want." It's like, really? Anything? I said, "Yep." And of course, they were very tame questions, but it's not like I was going to get something nasty. Yeah, but he was great. And again, he was so into it. And he was so thankful. He was so grateful. And that just makes it for me. I mean, just the fact that this has been a part of people's lives for that long, it's just crazy fun. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's total. You are the soundtrack to people's lives.
Yeah. Yep.
And you don't know if you're in the in the big hero scene or if you're in the you're getting in the bad scene or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. And you don't in the old days you didn't know this because there was not the internet. Where people could find you and tell you, which also happens. But yeah, with this, that running into folks, it's really cool because I think in the old days when it was analog, for lack of a better term, they would have to write you and find you. And now, especially if bands don't have management or labels, how are you going to find them?
Right.
But a thing like the cruise makes everybody come together. It's cool.
Yeah. Really... And like the festivals, like the M3 festival.
Yeah. Yep. I'm curious. We've never done M3. We've been asked a couple of times. We just haven't had, couldn't get it together or whatever.
Right.
So I'm really curious to do that. I think we're on the same day. I want to say Bret Michaels is the headliner that day.
Okay.
And we're on the big stage. And I mean, we had, that's the other thing too. We had done so many big gigs So it's not like we walked into the Cold Sweat reunion just going, now what? No, we played big ones, but again, people didn't know.
Right.
You know, some of these bands that are playing, they got a long history.
Yeah.
You know, and even if they went into hibernation like we did, it's still a long history.
Yeah.
And they played a lot. Like we had, as you know, we had Jeff Keith on here. You know, right. Jeff has been at this a long time. You are not gonna throw Jeff a curveball.
No.
Not anything he can get through it. And Cold Sweat is certainly not in that level, right. But we have the modicum of professionalism and the ability to get through it.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. It could be a friggin' disaster, but you don't know until you know.
Right. I can't. I mean, obviously, there's you know, oddball reasons why it could happen, but I don't foresee anything. What could happen between the
right.
5 of that right. You know, that could kill it, you know, or
right.
make it a bad time, or, you know, even if somebody's having a horrible day, it seems like they
right.
would get through it for it, and because you're all professionals.
Yeah. Well, and now it's becoming a legacy thing.
Yeah.
You know, it really is like, okay, well, since so much of this is on camera phones and YouTube and Facebook, you know, there's a high level of expectation. So you better be good. It's like that Alice Cooper song. You better be good. You better be nice. Mm-hmm. I remember we were talking. A friend of mine and I were talking about Gene Simmons the other day, and when they were going back to do Revenge and go do that tour, Gene had said to me, "He's like, we've got to be good this time, you know, because everybody's watching." And it kind of is still prevalent now, that attitude. Like the phones are watching. Yeah. They are. Yeah. For good or for, as we've seen, for good and the bad. Like, yeah. Oof, there's shit I see. I'm just like, oh, God. And you're not pulling it off.
Yeah.
You know, no one is pulling that one out of, you know, Life magazine and going, oh, nope, you can't see that one.
Right.
Nope, you're seeing it. It's bad.
Yeah. All right. So I guess it's time for the meme question.
Bring it on. I know how I have these two things, so go ahead.
So the mean question, for those who don't know, is we had Sons of Silver on, and we asked this question of everybody, but they were joking. They were joking around, obviously, that it's a mean question because there's so much that you could pick from.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the one record that Chris McLernon says you need to listen to?
There's a couple, and I don't think it's mean, but I still think it's fantastic. There's a couple because I think some of the idea that it's a record and it hits you at a time, and then that time becomes more important or as important as the record because it changes you. Yeah. So for me, I'd say Hard Day's Night was the first one. Like that's when I was young enough and I knew the Beatles were something special. Right. But I didn't know. I was just a kid. But my aunts knew, and one was 10 and one was 16. You know, so they were all crazy playing Beatles songs. I'm like, wow, yeah, I grew up with a bunch of crazy Beatle fans.
Right.
The other would be Van Halen 1.
Okay.
I remember putting that on. I was in high school. I went to a boarding school called the Lawrenceville School. And my buddy, now deceased, Len Sager, said, "You play guitar, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Have you heard this Van Halen band?" I said, "Well, I know it's two brothers, you know." And they did. "You Really Got Me." He's like, "Okay, come on up after, you know, we had study hall. Come on up after study hall, and I'll play the record. You got to hear it." So he plays on, and he puts it on, and Run With the Devil comes on. I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know, there's car horns. That's neat. And the song's good, you know, but I'm like blown away. Then Eruption started, and everything changed.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't see what he was doing. Like now, you could see it. Then you just heard it. And I looked at Len, and he looks at me, and I said, "What is that?" And he was like, "I was hoping you could tell me," because he clearly didn't switch to a keyboard. But I was like, "What is this?"
Right.
And you really got me started. I was like, "Holy shit!" Then I ain't talking about love, and I'm the one. And I said, "Play that again." He goes, "No, you got to hear the other side." So, holy shit! So that one absolutely changed the landscape.
Right.
The other ones that definitely like change. I was listening to Alice Cooper's Killer record the other day.
Yes.
Just unreal, because it's just before we got out of the dirty Alice Cooper, you know, we're dangerous kind of thing. I mean, I post something on Instagram with a calendar that came with Killer, which is Alice in a noose. That was your souvenir. You got a 1972 calendar, which my birthday was on a Friday the 13th. It's even funnier. So yeah, that was a big Alice Cooper's greatest hits too. I had as a kid, played it over. Cheap Trick live at Budokan.
Right.
Couldn't believe how good they were.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking to myself, are they? Because I can separate stuff out. And I'm going, there's only one guy there and one guy there, and the drums and bass, and they're singing perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought about that. There's a lot of those live records from the '70s. Skinner, that was the era that the live record could break you.
Yeah,
it really could, and did for a lot of bands.
Yeah, that's the way you got to know bands.
Yep.
You just, instead of going out and buying the first 3 records, you went and bought the live record.
Right. Yeah, and the live versions were always better.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, they always were. Yeah. And then there were later ones too, though, that I remember really. This is where it gets really weird in some senses. It's the Saigon Kick debut for sure.
Okay.
Because I heard that and went, I always tell the story. I got to be in my favorite band. I mean, they were. Yeah. I had that in Lizard. I came in, I knew everything. Boom, let's go. Yeah. And got the gig. Luckily, that record, Chris Isaak's Heart-Shaped World, was just huge as far as like the sound and the mood. Crowded House, their first record,
right,
just blew me away. Just because I was always this Beatles kid, hidden in a Van Halen haircut. Right. Who else? Another one, like holy, the Mozart. There's a St. Martin Academy in the Fields with Neville Mariner, and it's a best of Mozart because it looks like a bust of Mozart and it's sliced. Right. And that is absolutely a game changer for me because I'd seen Amadeus. And I was like, oh, neat, Mozart. Right. And I went out and found that. I was like, holy crap. Right. This makes you feel like an idiot. I'm playing a rock song. Yay. Yeah. And then the cool part was I watched Amadeus about 6 months ago for the first time. And then ends those end scenes where he's reciting in bed and he's doing this. I understand it all now. Right. I know what he's saying. Then I was just like, I'm just Mozart pretty, that type of stuff. So yeah, it's a long list, I guess, of things that change.
Right. That's all right. Well, you get a little leeway because you're.
I do. I do. Another one though is Ramones' "It's Alive." Okay. That was another biggie. Again, I was these punky stuff with the Beatles stuff, but it was always, is the song any good?
Right.
Is the song any good? Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous. Oh boy. Thunder and Lightning, huge also.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you can start breaking down whether there were guitar records, there were song records, there were ones that there's some that I got on vinyl now, and I go, why did I play this at all? Right. I was like really into this record now, and I hear go, ugh. Yeah. This is kind of whatever. Does not hit the right funny bone. It just nope, gone.
Exactly. All right. So the new record is called Unburied Alive.
Yes, it is.
It comes out, if you're watching this the day that we do this, it comes out today. If not,
it does.
If it's not, then just go get it.
Yes. Yeah. So, please, yes, go get it. I think you'll enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of the band and you know that we're proud of being good live.
Right. Right. Good stuff. Well, hey, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for co-hosting the show.
Sure. That comes naturally.
Right on. Okay. So this is where we would end.
Yep.
And then you would see us in different clothes and different hair and different
right.
Right now, this is what we call the close of the show. So
right.
That guy wasn't nearly as bad as I thought he was going to be.
No, he seemed to have decent manners for once. Turned it on. He kind of distracting with the Arnold shirt, but
it's all right. It's all right though.
Always looking for trivia response. Yeah. Yep. So, and by the way, on behind you, we have.
Oh, there we go. Look at that 3D version.
There we go. So yeah, 3D. Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, that's so and I'm playing a lot again, which is really fun. We can cover that in another episode.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be all over that in another episode. But just for now, it was the Cold Sweat. I, for one, am ecstatic that this record comes out today.
It's gonna be fun.
We're friends, all that kind of stuff. But I'm a big fan, so I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you, sir. I mean, I appreciate it. And the guys do too. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that anyone is still around to listen to us is great.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't take it lightly. And we're very grateful.
Yes, very good. All right, so let's see if we can do this before we run out of time. So until next time, I'm Jack Trash.
And I'm Chris McLernon.
And this is Plus One, a rock and roll podcast. And live your life to 10 plus 1.
And we shall see you at Will Call. Bring your ID.